Welcome everyone to this channel where I will be sharing episode reviews of that 1960s television show that I enjoy so much, Lost in Space. I encourage you to like and subscribe so that you don't miss each new installment as I work my way through all 83 episodes of this wonderful series. Up next, Season 1, Episode 14, Attack of the Monster Plants. The Robinsons are mining what may be the last of the radioactive ores that they will refine to produce deuteronium, the fuel needed for the Jupiter 2. With this last vein, they may have just barely enough of the fuel to take off. Once again banished from camp, Smith discovers plants that can duplicate items. Fearful that there may not be enough fuel to include him when they take off, and that he may be left behind, Smith hatches a devious plan to use these duplicating plants to help assure him a seat aboard the Jupiter 2 when it departs. The Robinsons' plans for departure, however, become complicated once Judy goes missing. My opinion of monster plants has changed over time, and for the better. I'm generally not a fan of Judy episodes owing to how the writers wrote for her and how she is typically portrayed. Happily, Monster Plants is unlike all other Judy episodes. It is quite good and unquestionably features Marta's strongest performance of the entire series. It is, however, one made even better by being a true ensemble cast episode, and I enjoy Smith and John's role in it as much as Judy's. So with that, let's jump into the story. The opening scene features John and Smith mining the radioactive ore that they will refine into deuteronium. To be clear, John is doing the mining. Smith is seated on a rock while pontificating. Without anyone's awareness, a vine reaches out across the ground, grabs John by the leg, and drags him into a pit of quicksand. John calls out for Smith to help, but he is too paralyzed by fear. All Smith can do is call out for help. Don hears the cries and comes running up to John, but while trying to help, gets pulled into the quicksand as well. Finally, Smith tries to help John, but becomes so fearful of being pulled in that he backs away and ultimately runs off to the Jupiter to try to get some help. The moment Smith arrives at the Jupiter, things become a little weird. Smith was running back to the ship in a panic, anxious to get any help. In the moment that he arrives there, however, he immediately takes on a much more relaxed pace and countenance. Indeed, he's neither hurrying nor is there any alarm in his voice at all. This change in urgency always really bothered me, and there was a time when I considered this scene to be among the few negatives of this episode. During my introductory video, I described why I like doing these videos and how I enjoyed the exchange of ideas and perspectives among fans, as they can sometimes lead me to see things differently. This is a scene I had in mind when I made that statement. It was suggested by someone else in a Lost in Space forum that at this stage in the series, we still have a very evil Dr. Smith with us. It is possible that Smith was not actually anxious to save Don and John's lives at all. The Jupiter was nearly ready to fly, and with Don and John out of the picture, Smith would be able to persuade the rest of the family to return to Earth. This is a great take on this scene. It took one that I used to dislike because it made no sense to me, and transformed it into one that I now rather enjoy, as it reminds us all that we still have a wonderfully evil and early Dr. Smith still with us. So getting back to the scene, Will happens to be playing with a lasso, and Smith very casually asks him to bring the rope to John and Don. With no indication of urgency, and Will's minor annoyance at Smith for so many requests, he plods off rather slowly to the drill site. When Will finally arrives and sees the men in the quicksand, he quickly runs over and uses the rope to pull them out. He says he would have made it there sooner if only he knew they were in trouble. I always enjoy the Smith-West dynamic, so how can I not smile a bit at Don's retort?
I'd have been here even quicker if Dr. Smith had told me you were in trouble.
Now he's in trouble. Come on.
When the men return to the ship, they have Smith pack up and banish him from the camp. Judy seems troubled by this harsh treatment, but on this she stands alone. Smith tells Don that he will regret this. just as he notices 2 cans of the deuteronium on the table. He lays his jacket upon them while saying goodbye to Will and Penny, and then later scoops them up along with his jacket as he leaves. In this, as well as the next few scenes, there are just so many fun moments to enjoy. I always get a smile out of John's reaction to the missing cans of fuel and how he very knowingly sends Don out to retrieve them.
Just didn't walk off by themselves. Somebody took them.
Smith, I'll be right back. This is one of them sure that I'm really going to enjoy.
Before Don can catch up, we have a few moments with Smith and the robot. Here I want to pause to acknowledge how difficult a job Bob May had in portraying the robot. Here he is wearing the Bermuda shorts version of the costume, meaning that his feet came out of the bottom and he was walking instead of being pulled by cables. What this means is that he was already carrying the full weight of the robot's suit on his shoulders, a costume that is reputed to weigh nearly 200 pounds. Then we have Smith throwing one bag after another onto the robot. Here, we need to remember that Bob May had very limited visibility from inside the suit. His only view out was through that small bit of ribbed glass just below the bubble. In this scene, what little visibility Bob ever had becomes completely obscured as he is now marching in that heavy costume through a bed of sand, carrying that baggage, all while clearly having no way to see where he was going at all. Without question, Bob had the toughest job of anyone in the cast. Finally, the entire scene comes to a head once Don catches up with Smith. I always find so much to smile about when these two are together. In this instance, beyond the dialogue, I always get a bit of a giggle over Don's reaction to Smith's unquestionably false claims, his anger and disdain for Smith, which is amusingly accompanied by a smile by Don himself.
Hand them over.
Them, Major? Whatever are you talking about?
You know what I'm talking about. The missing deuteronium canisters.
Oh, is some of that precious substance missing? How unfortunate. But let me assure you, Major, I haven't the foggiest notion where your canisters might be.
I'll give you just 30 seconds. If you don't hand them over, I'm going to start tearing you apart.
I really haven't any idea.
You're asking for it. You haven't the foggiest notion, eh?
You were going to leave me behind. You are going to leave me, aren't you?
Well, that decision is up to Professor Robinson. But if he asks for my opinion, I'm voting to leave you here.
Next, we have the men continuing to drill for deuteronium. They have a total of 6 canisters. Don says the vein of radioactive ore is thinning out, but John would like to try for one more can for insurance. Just then, Smith peeks out from behind some rocks and eavesdrops on the conversation. John leaves to carry the existing canisters back to the ship for safekeeping. His comment about wanting one more can prompts Will to ask Don if they will have enough, and Don offers him some assurances. Don, fully aware that Smith is eavesdropping, takes the opportunity to throw a little worry into Smith about being included or not when they take off. He says to Judy, loud enough to ensure that Smith can hear, that their fuel-to-weight ratio will be very close and they may not have enough to take Smith with them when they go. Judy says she heard John say that he would be taking Smith, at which point Don lets her know that Smith is listening and that he's just teasing him. Judy, sympathetic towards Smith, at least in this episode, calls this a nasty trick, to which Don responds simply that Smith deserves it. Smith, now alarmed, comes down from the rocks and intercepts Will on his walk back to the Jupiter. Smith tells him that he just wanted to say goodbye. Will says that he will be coming with them, but Smith is buying Don's ploy, confident that someone will need to be left behind and that someone is him. It is here that Smith begins to hatch a scheme. He brings Will to where he's been camping out and shares how he has discovered some plants that duplicate items. He shows off the many shaving kits, cans of food, and even wristwatches he has duplicated over the little bit of time that he's been banished. He describes to Will how he made this discovery with a quick demonstration, laying one of his shaving kits down on a rock. The giant plant reaches down and swallows it up.
Go for my kit. I tried to grab it. For a moment, I was nonplussed, torn between fear of this vegetaceous monster and the prospect of the loss of my shaving kit. But fearlessly, I made my decision. I grabbed the thief, forced it open, and plucked my
Smith wrestles the shaving kit back out from the plant and then amazingly reaches in and pulls out a duplicate of the shaving kit.
The plant had created an exact duplicate of my shaving kit. It was, my dear boy, a truly marvelous discovery. I spent all last night duplicating the luxuries and necessities of life. Look.
Golly!
That's exactly what I said when I first witnessed this miracle. A miracle, my boy, that will ensure all of us, including myself, a safe return to Earth.
What do you mean?
It should be obvious that these wonderful plants can, in the twinkling of an eye, produce as much deuteronium as we need.
And then says that since these plants can reproduce anything, they can reproduce as many cans of deuteronium as they want, ensuring everyone a safe passage.
Are you sure it's...
Will is reluctant, but Smith persuades him to try it out on the one can of deuteronium that he's been carrying. Smith places the canister on the rock, the plant reaches down, and sure enough, they now have 2 canisters.
3. It's done. Here is the original. And here is the duplicate.
Will is anxious to tell his dad, but the ever-crafty Smith demands that he take back only 1 canister to show John, and the other will remain with Smith. Will runs up to Don and John, who are still busy at the drill site, and very excitedly describes how Dr. Smith has these plants that can duplicate anything, and they can now make all the fuel that they want. John examines the canister that Will was holding and discovers that while it looks like one of their canisters, inside it is just a plant. John tells Will that Smith tricked him. He kept the real one and gave him the plant-based copy. Smith once more emerges from behind a rock, eavesdropping on the conversation. Don catches sight of him and, in another effort to torment Smith, tells Will that they were able to exploit the last pocket of that vein and now have all the fuel that they need without Smith's canister. Will, angry at having been tricked, says they should leave Smith behind. On Smith's face, we see not only his alarm at possibly being left behind, but also how he has harmed his relationship with Will, something that Smith values highly. As the men return to the ship, Smith catches up and calls out to John, hoping to bargain for passage aboard the Jupiter when they take off. I love so much about this scene. It's fun seeing Smith attempt to negotiate, having once thought he held all the cards while now recognizing that he holds none. More so, I enjoy John's response, everything from his tone of voice to his countenance. Even though his personal sense of honor would never allow him to leave Smith behind, John knowingly plays along and has a bit of fun while doing it.
Come to the point.
I've come prepared to strike a bargain.
A bargain? Well, that's very decent of you, but why should I bargain with you? And over what?
Over deuteronium. Those precious little grains of fuel that will take us away from this beleaguered planet.
Well, we don't need your deuteronium.
I'm aware of that. But surely an extra can will guarantee a safe departure.
Yes, I suppose it might.
Good. Now we come to the bargain part.
Which is?
Will the extra can of deuteronium also guarantee that I will be included in the ship's company when you depart?
Ah, I thought it would be that. The answer, Dr. Smith, is that we'll take you along if it's humanly possible. Now, considering your recent behavior, I'd say that's more than fair.
Oh, you're so right. And I shall hasten and get the can of deuteronium still in my possession and deliver it to you forthwith.
You do that.
And then I shall rest my fate in your honest and capable hands.
John says that Smith must return the extra canister, and in the hopes of ensuring himself that seat aboard the Jupiter, he runs back to his camp and quickly grabs a few of his belongings before running over for that canister of fuel. He instantly becomes alarmed to discover that not only is the canister empty, but the plants have grown wildly. He correctly deduces that the plants feed on the deuteronium. This is followed by another scene that I really enjoy. Smith returns to the Jupiter to tell John that, well, as he says it,
Did you bring the can of deuteronium?
I know you'll find this very difficult to believe, but it's true, absolutely true. The plants ate it.
The plants ate the deuteronium.
That's correct.
Well, how unfortunate, Dr. Smith.
Yes, unfortunate for me. I presume this means that I'm once again doomed to be left behind.
Well, a bargain is a bargain.
Yes, I suppose it is. But I ask you to bear in mind that, unlike the rest of you, I did not volunteer for this mission. If justice is to prevail, I should be the first name on the list of those departing.
I shall bear that in mind, Dr. Smith.
once more, it's fun to see Smith having to do some groveling, with an excuse akin to the dog having eaten our homework. It is even more fun to see John respond to Smith's story with incredulousness, while at the same time clearly toying with Smith. We all know John will not leave him behind, but John is still going to make Smith sweat it out. As John returns to the ship, Don, Penny, and Will step out, followed by Judy, and this introduces yet another very fun scene. I love Smith's response to Will when he says he shouldn't have tried to trick him. As always, Smith and Don are fun to watch when they're together, and Don is taking every opportunity to make Smith worry about his chances.
You know, it's really a shame, Dr. Smith, but things don't look too good for you at all.
The condition you find most cheering?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, when I compute the fuel-to-weight ratio, which we already know is going to be very critical, I'll do my best to include us all.
I'm deeply touched.
Does that mean I can take the bloop?
How can you even think of taking that beast when I may have to remain?
I think the bloop should go. So do I.
Well, we don't have a capsule for the bloop, so that's out of the question.
I'll build her a capsule.
That's a deal. You build a capsule for the bloop and she goes.
Oh,
Of course, that cuts the available weight still further. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Smith, but things don't look very good for you at all.
Bloop indeed.
That evening, back at his camp, Smith catches a sight of Judy walking among the now giant plants. Somewhat inexplicably, almost as though she is in a trance, Judy steps into one of the plants and lies down as the plant closes up around her. Smith looks in and sees that she is safe, but apparently in a deep sleep. With this discovery, Smith believes that he now has the upper hand after all, a hand that he intends to play the following morning. Returning to the Jupiter campsite early next morning, Smith happily engages with each member one at a time before finally saying that he sees everyone, but what about Judy? Where's Judy?
Well, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
A most felicitous scene. The early risers preparing to meet the day. And how is our dear little space mother this glorious morning? A vision of pioneer loveliness. I've always said so, madam.
What is it you want, Dr. Smith?
But where is the rest of our happy little group? Don't tell me we have some stay-a-beds in our midst. Ah, our representative from the military, rubbing the sleep from his eyes like a tousled little boy. How utterly charming.
Dr. Smith, if you've got something to say it, or leave.
In due time, my dear Robinson, in due time. Now then, Judy. That's whom I don't see. Where is Judy, the fairest flower of them all?
If you've done anything to her, Smith.
Please, I wouldn't harm a hair on her head. It's just that I don't see Judy here among you. I wonder if you know where she is.
Well, she's probably still asleep.
With that upper hand firmly in his grasp, he returns to the Jupiter the following morning to lay out his terms. Here, too, I love so much about what Jonathan brings to this scene. The way Smith plays his upper hand, almost with a sense of contempt for those with whom he intends to negotiate. As always, it's not just his lines, but the way Jonathan delivers them, even his facial expressions, that makes this scene so much fun.
Well, then why won't you tell us?
It grieves me deeply, dear lady, to see you so upset. But I simply cannot tell you where she is just yet.
What does that mean?
It means that your plan to leave this desolate cinder without me is going to change. Now then, as I see it, there are two alternatives, and the choice is yours. Number one, we leave for Earth as planned, with me taking Judy's place on the ship.
Well, now, you know we can't do that.
I thought not. So you choose the other alternative.
Exactly what is the other alternative?
Major West pilots me back to Earth, and your charming little family can stay here bathed in togetherness. When I am safely away, I will radio where Judy is. When I arrive on Earth, my first solemn duty will be to organize a rescue mission to come back for the rest of you.
You'll never get away with this, Smith.
I see no need for a tiresome discussion. My decision is made. Now then, dear lady, breakfast. There is so much to do if Major West and I are to leave on schedule.
From the ship, the family begins to unload the belongings that they will need to survive once left behind. Will says he's finished unloading his belongings, so Smith tells him to begin carrying his own baggage back onto the ship. Inside the Jupiter, John and Don are going through pre-launch checks when Don's patience runs out. He wants to know where Judy is and intends to hear it from Smith, even if he has to beat it out of him. Just then, Smith walks up to them, and Don gets more physical with him than just about any other time during the series. John steps in to call Don off, and in that moment, Smith catches a glimpse of Judy walking back into camp, seemingly completely fine. While Maureen and John are relieved to have her back, Don isn't done with Smith. Amusingly, Smith declares that he was merely joking, just as Don was doing earlier about not being able to take Smith on the flight.
Try to remember that the superior man deplores violence, Major.
Well, maybe I'm not superior, Smith, because I'm gonna finish wringing your neck for what you put us through.
You don't really believe I'd have gone through with my little plan, do you? I was merely joshing, just as you were.
John declares that the entire matter is settled, and Maureen invites Smith to a dinner that they plan to have that evening to celebrate Judy's safe return. Everyone is enjoying the celebratory dinner together, but it is clear that something is wrong with Judy. While everyone is eating, she just sits there, looking around. Maureen asks if she would like some salad. Judy declines. Maureen asks again, and Judy snaps at her rather viciously. Judy apologizes, but is clearly upset as she looks around the table at others eating the salad. She excuses herself from the table and plans to go to bed. Don offers to walk her in, but Judy responds rather abruptly to him as well. Though the family assumes that she just needs a good night's sleep, it is clear that something is not quite right with Judy. Later that evening, Smith slips out of the Jupiter and heads back to his camp. He plans to dig up one of the duplicating plants, thinking it will make him a rich man once he returns to Earth. While digging, however, he catches a glimpse of Judy as she, too, walks among the plants. The plants reach out for her, and she caresses them. On a rock, she sets down the canisters of deuteronium that she had been carrying. It becomes clear to Smith what has happened, and who this Judy is. In that moment, Judy sees Smith watching her and demands that he come over to her. Judy acknowledges that she is in actuality a duplicate, or plant Judy, and that she was feeding their deuteronium to the plants. Smith, always angling for his own singular interests, comes up with a plan and negotiates with Plant Judy. persuading her to hand over a couple of cans of the fuel so that he and Don could fly back to Earth while leaving the Robinsons behind to mine additional fuel that she could then feed the plants in perpetuity. The next morning, Will is on the upper deck and gets a shocking look outside the front viewport. After having received Plant Judy's feeding the night before, the plants have grown wildly and are absolutely taking over. Everyone comes up for a look, and Don says,
There isn't any time to find out. Any organism that grows that rapidly will sooner or later snuff out any other form of life on the planet.
With the chariot nearby, the men make their way out to it and try to destroy the plants with their lasers. John gives the order to fire, and Don does, but he says that it's not having much of an impact, that the plants just bounce back. While this is going on, Plant Judy emerges from the lower deck and is outraged by John and Don's efforts to kill the plants. She runs out of the ship and makes her way to the chariot. Climbing in, she yanks out the cord for the laser and lunges towards the controls of the chariot. John struggles with her and in the process scratches Judy's arm, the unusual wound revealing that this is not their Judy. They bring her back inside the Jupiter and begin to question her. This not only reveals the full story to the Robinsons, but also Smith's negotiated agreement with Plant Judy. Don, out of patience, essentially assaults Smith, who finally acknowledges that he knows where Judy is, but it leaves the question of how to navigate their way to her through all of the plants. Don suggests burning them off, but that would put the real Judy at risk. John wonders about possibly freezing the plants instead, but Don likewise says that that might harm Judy. As is so often the case, it is young Will who emerges as our hero with the bright idea. He says he has already performed some experiments on the plants and knows that their freezing point is 44 degrees, low enough to kill the plants, but not so low that it might harm Judy. They break out their decontamination freezing units, head out, and begin to open a path to Judy. Indeed, they do find her still sleeping inside the large plant in which she had originally laid. She comes to and is cold but safe. They wrap her in a blanket and John carries her off. With that, we have the scene that sets up our next episode. As always, I will withhold my comments until my review of that episode, Return from Outer Space. So here, let me share some additional thoughts about Attack of the Monster Plants, and I'll start with its many positives. First off is the fact that as much as this is a Judy episode, it is really a full cast ensemble episode. Everyone is featured at some point, and everyone contributes meaningfully to the story, and this episode is stronger because of that. I also always enjoy when an episode sounds and feels like real science fiction. We get some of that here when Smith explains to Will how the plants reproduce items, that they do so through cellular mitosis, cell division, and that for these plants, that process is simply non-discriminatory. While I don't know how plausible that is, it does sound like real science, and I'm willing to accept it in the interest of a good story. Then there are this episode's special effects, in this case really, the plants themselves. They are wonderfully animated, and their sounds are magnificent, really helping them seem to be alive. These plants are obviously a central element to the story, and happily, this was all done well enough so as to not detract, but absolutely add to an already great episode. As I do so often, I want to take a moment to consider the Will-Smith relationship as it takes some turns during this episode. As much as Smith has an affection for Will, he is still not above attempting to fool and manipulate him to get what he wants for himself. For Will's part, over the past few episodes, we see his friendship with Smith grow. He remains clear, however, on who Smith is and is at times cautious and even a bit hostile. We see some of both of these things throughout this episode, most dramatically once Will discovers that Smith has tricked him with the canister of deuteronium. He is angry with himself, but much more angry with Smith, ultimately suggesting that maybe Smith should be left behind for his trickery. Inasmuch as Smith becomes worried about being left behind, he is also deeply hurt by Will's sinking opinion of him. Then, of course, there's Judy. Judy was showcased infrequently throughout the series. Even in this instance, in what is viewed as a Judy episode, the fact is that Judy isn't really featured much until the second half. Nonetheless, Marta has repeatedly indicated that Monster Plants was her favorite episode, and it is a wonderful showcase for her talents. Every one of her scenes is fantastic, and she is at her best as Plant Judy. When she angrily confronts Smith out at his camp, her outbursts over dinner, running out after the men as they begin killing the plants, the struggle in the chariot, and the family questioning her back at the ship. She always comes across as unpredictable and dangerous. These are all wonderful scenes, and Judy is the character that defines them. It's kind of funny how the real Judy character, at least in my opinion, tends to be a little flat and uninteresting, but Plant Judy is wonderfully exciting and believable. Though this may be thought of as a Judy episode, as is so often the case, it is actually Smith that emerges as the star, as he is responsible for many of the most fun scenes. Indeed, the truly evil Smith is back. He left John and Don for dead, slowing his and Will's response to the quicksand pit. I especially enjoy hearing Smith negotiate with John for a place aboard the ship, and even more so how John responds with his not-so-subtle sarcasm. Better still, how Smith addresses everyone once he thinks he has the upper hand owing to Judy's disappearance. I also enjoy many of Smith's individual statements scattered about the episode, delivered as only a defiant Smith could say them. He is always just a lot of fun to watch. Like all Lost in Space episodes, though, any number of things simply don't make sense, or at the very least, go unexplained. During the evening, when the real Judy ends up lying down in the plant, why was Judy wandering around on her own at night in the first place? And what would compel her to lie down on an alien flower, one that Will has already identified as a flower that can duplicate items? Was she in a trance? Maybe, even probably. But this all goes completely unexplained, and that's a shame because it wouldn't have taken more than a brief line here or there to clear all of this up. Later in the episode, when John struggles with Plant Judy in the chariot, I always think they could have done more from an effects perspective when Judy becomes wounded. Being in black and white, Judy's wounds look like nothing more than a bruise or a bit of an abrasion. Certainly nothing that would give her away as Plant Judy. I have to wonder if, from a makeup perspective, they couldn't have somehow included some of the plant material, like what was inside the fake deuteronium canister. That definitely would have made that already excellent scene so much more dramatic. The most glaring instance of something not making sense is John's agreement to allow Smith to fly off into Jupiter with Don while he and the family remain behind, left to camp without shelter on an alien planet, waiting for who knows how long to be saved. Why would John do this, even going so far as to unpack all their supplies from the ship? At this stage in the story, we know John was merely toying with Smith, that they already had all the deuteronium they needed to include Smith when they take off. So why would he have to negotiate with Smith for anything? I suppose it was needed to tell the story that they wanted to tell, but it simply didn't make logical sense. Finally, there's the conclusion. There is some fantastic action and excitement, followed by a fizzle. This episode is wonderful right up to the very last minute. The plants closing in on the Jupiter, the struggle with Plant Judy in the chariot, needing to find their way to the real Judy by killing the plants without harming her, and more. But then, Judy is found. They wrap her in a blanket, and the next episode is already beginning. This episode ends very abruptly, and we're already moving on to the next one. There really should have been a bit more after finding Judy to really wrap up the story. Much more disappointing than that is that there was a much more thrilling conclusion originally written for this episode. It was axed owing to the network's concern about showing what would be a withering death of Plant Judy. As a consequence, we are left without any explanation as to what happens to Plant Judy. This earlier version of the script and how the episode would otherwise resolve sounds fantastic, and it's a shame it was not further pursued. What we end up with instead is a good climax that gives way to a comparatively unsatisfying conclusion. Throughout this review, like so many other reviews before it, I mention how much I enjoy Smith, his lines, and the way he delivers them. So with that, let me give the last word to the good doctor.
You shouldn't have tried to trick me.
I didn't just try, I succeeded. Let's not forget that.
I really enjoy Attack of the Monster Plants. It is easily my favorite Judy episode. There are only a few negatives, though some of those are fairly substantial. However, this episode offers up some great drama. I do enjoy Smith's efforts to manipulate. I enjoy John's somewhat sarcastic responses to Smith. And the conclusion is pretty powerful, at least up until that final minute or so. Plants earns for me a solid A, a very high grading, though just below top tier. I rank it 12th for the season, putting it comfortably in the top half of all first season episodes. That's saying something when considering the strength of this first season. For the full series, I rank it 23rd, well into the top third of all Lost in Space episodes. If you would like to see the full Lost in Space series, it presently airs for free on METV. You can also still pick up Lost in Space on DVD. Walmart currently sells a box set that includes some wonderful extras, and it's available at a very modest cost. Better still, pick up Lost in Space on Blu-ray. That set also features a number of wonderful extras, including commentary by the cast. Like I said, I'm a fan, and for me, the Blu-ray is a must-have. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Attack of the Monster Plants. One of the things I enjoy most about sharing reviews like this is how different fans perceive each episode quite differently, and I invite you to leave your own perspectives below in the comments. Most of all, I hope you will come back to join me when I review our next episode, Return from Outer Space, another very fun Season 1 episode, this one featuring Will. Once again, I recommend subscribing so that you don't miss each new installment. Thanks for watching.